All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast, guys. I'm your host, Freeway, and I'm here with a couple of people to rant about the ban list that just dropped a couple days ago. It goes in effect, I think, October 3rd. We are here with, of course, my co-host, Kenny, who's always with me.
Yeah.
And then we have returning guest and friend of the podcast, Chris Lin, and also YCS champion and returning guest and friend of the podcast, Joe Dietrich. So, guys, I'm glad to have you back here. We're going to rant and talk about Konami's latest fiasco. A lot of people are not happy. Some people apparently are happy, Chris Lin. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So who hates this and who loves this?
I like that Chris... Halky Fibrax is banned. We were just talking about him. That's cool.
Yeah.
Fuck him.
He's finally gone. Even though I don't think that he was a big part of the format anymore, but he was...
I'm happy he's gone. Fuck him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not playing devil's advocate on purpose. I legitimately, when I saw the ban list, I got immediately happy.
Because?
I think of ban lists as deck building. If deck building was a video game, it's DLC for the video game. And This was a very large, high content DLC. There's a lot to figure out. And with knowledge of Darkwing Blast, which comes out before the next YCS, it's very interesting.
So the next
comes out the day before.
Yeah,
it
comes out. Yeah,
that is so.
Yeah, this current format doesn't matter. It's one of those. They've been doing it a lot. A lot of formats don't matter.
Yeah,
they're like locals only formats.
So basically,
over
people who are really upset about this list right now, things are going to get shaken up anyway before Minneapolis YCS in October. Mm-hmm. And like, granted, there are reasons to complain. Like, if I was a competitive player in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh right now, I think I would still be a little annoyed that Mystic Mind is not banned. I just can't imagine a world where I ever want to interact with the most non-interactive deck of all time. Like, that just...
that's actually that's something I thought about even before this ban list. I don't think mine is a good card. I don't think mine's a problem. It is a good card. I don't think it's a problem.
I was about to say, I think that two things can be true, right? So on one hand, you can say mine is not a problem while also acknowledging that mine is one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh cards ever printed. Period. Mm-hmm. Like that is a fact. It is not a hot take. It is not like the opinion of just the boomer that I am. Mine is literally in the top 10 of all Yu-Gi-Oh cards ever printed ever. Like that is a actual fact. It's gotten to the point now where mine is just winning events on its own. Like like unironically, not even a meme. Mine by itself has won several tournaments this year. Like, that is insane to me because has enabled some of the most degenerate strategies ever, which I guess just comes down to deck out or your opponent scooping. Like those decks tend to not have a real win condition. I mean, I guess they can burn you with like the Cauldron of the Old Man thing, but at the end of the day, most of the time the game is going to end because your opponent realizes I have no outs to this, and you also protected it with like beat cop or whatever the fuck you do in the game.
It's like there's a lot of decks that are like helped by it, but I don't know if I would agree with saying like decks don't have like a way to kill you. Like Hansel's deck, like 21 Nats, like the Sword Soul deck can like really kill you pretty easily.
Yes. Oh no, I wasn't talking. Just to clarify, I wasn't talking about the decks that are real decks that people just added Mystic Mind to a real deck. I was talking about specifically the decks that have won recently that are literally Mystic Mind decks and nothing else.
Sure,
like those decks that play zero monsters, and it's just this deck has no actual win condition if Mystic Mind wasn't in the format. Like you could not put those 37 cards together, and you know what I mean? Like if you took Hansel's Sword Soul deck, right? He could still win Nationals with his Sword Soul deck if you remove the 3 Mystic Minds. In fact, he'd be at 40 cards. But like, you cannot possibly win with the 37 cards associated with the decks that are just playing Mystic Mind and no monsters. Those like I think was it YCS? Was it Brazil or something? I forget what events it won, but there were 2 events. One was
Rio,
Rio, and something else. 2 tournaments were taken by like Mystic Mind this year, which is just crazy.
So the point
go ahead.
Well, the point I want to make is based on what you said earlier, which is that the people that just put mine into a good deck, right?
Yeah.
Mine, there's this saying that people keep saying, which is that like everyone in the room should be maining or siding mine somewhere, right?
Right.
But it implies that every single deck you can have a game plan under mine by just putting it in your deck. Like because you know you're about to play mine, you can play a different way that makes you the successful mine player in any situation. So in theory, every deck is already set up to run mine all the time. You just have to know what your game plan is for when you activate the mine. So then with that in mind, if your opponent activates it, all you have to do is say that's mine. Like when your opponent activates mine, just say that's my mine, and then just play that way. And it like it changes it a
I get what
lot.
you're saying. So if you
it's too symmetrical. It's so symmetrical that I don't think is an issue.
But here's where I want.
But it's not fun. It's also not fun.
To this, Chris. I get what you're saying because like theoretically, a field spell that affects both players in the exact same way. It's the same no matter who's like Mystic Mine is the same as. Like a lot of field spells that both players are literally affected by, right? Like it doesn't matter who played it, it has the exact same effect on you that it does on me. I can't attack if I have more monsters, you can't attack if you have more monsters. I have no effects, and vice versa, right? We get that. But I think the issue is, and I thought about this and how frustrating this has to be. Imagine you are just playing against a Source Soul deck, right? Like you're playing a Source Soul deck, the Source Soul deck is doing Source Soul things, you're doing whatever you're doing, Drytron things or whatever it is, right? Like I'm just gonna throw out a random deck, Punk. You're doing your Punk things, they're doing Source Soul things, and then in the middle of the game, unexpectedly, they just activate a Mystic Mine that you did not know, because they can beat you. It's not like the issue I think I have with the card is not those decks that are just Mystic Mine decks, if I'm being honest, because those decks get blown the fuck out by like Harpy's Feather Storm and like not Harpy's Feather Storm, Harpy's Feather Dust, like all like Lightning Storm, like all those cards that just clear multiple back row. Like those decks, when they do lose, it's always like, well, yeah, I got evenly matched out the game, or I got Lightning Storm out the game, and my mind left that turn, I died that turn. But it's when you're dueling someone, I think, and you're playing just like a Sprite Mirror or something, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the game, they're just like, mine, and then I'm going to deck you up because you have less cards than me, or mine, and I'm going to sit here, and you didn't expect it because my deck is a real deck outside of mine, but like playing Cosmic Cyclone against this deck is terrible. Like I don't want Cosmic Cyclone ever against 99% of the competitive decks in the format, right? Like it would be so bad to have that card in your deck to just outmine, because the Sword Soul can literally just beat you by being a Sword Soul deck, and Cosmic Cyclone is not really good against that deck at all. Like I don't really think that anybody's like, I side that card in every time I play against Sword Soul. That's not the reality. And so it's really frustrating when you're just sitting down playing someone and you guys both have two normally competitive decks, and then that shit gets activated on you, and it's like, well, I didn't side in for that. Like, are you supposed to be siding for mine? Because a lot of people side deck it, right? And then
yes. Well, so my counterpoint to all that is that that's not new to mine. That experience is not a new thing to mine. That's like almost like I feel like every format, like a lot of decks will do something like that. Like very frequently, somebody will do something where it's just like, Shaddoll Fusion, just siding in Shaddoll Fusion, like, oh, I wasn't ready for Shaddoll Fusion. Like, of course you weren't. That's the point. There were people like just switch their whole deck from one to another. I don't remember any of them off the top of my head, but there's like full on like side in 15 cards, side off 15 cards. I'm playing a different deck now.
Yeah.
I think like the
Eldritch have to be that drastic, right? Like just siding Shaddoll Fusion, one Dragon, one Beast, which is what I think people used to do in the past. I think I even did it before Necros. Is really, really powerful against when BA was like your main deck that you would go against with Necros, and you would just side in Shaddoll Fusion to blow them out. And like, if they weren't ready for it, they probably lost the game right there. I think the difference is that mine is just so much more powerful than anything else. Like Shaddoll Fusion is a good card, and in context of like 2014, 2015, when people were siding Shaddoll Fusion in non-Shaddoll decks, it was pretty powerful, but I don't think there's anything, I don't think it's easy to compare what mine does to a duel to any other side deck card. Or
also, I do agree with that.
Like, I agree with your point, though, is that this is not the first time that a card is very powerful and unexpected. And when that's kind of the point, like you said, like, I agree. Like, when I side in a card that you might not be ready for, that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is that you're not ready for it, so that way it can catch you off guard. And then
I mean, like, imagine the first event where, like, was it Furman? The first event, somebody started, like, sending Necroworld Banshee and just activating Zombie World at random times. Whoever was the only one who did that the first time must have pissed everyone off. But like, I think like you said, mine does it in a way that's never been done before, and like a more powerful way than it's ever been done for.
It's so powerful.
And I think the reason that people hate it so much is because of how unfun the scenario it creates.
That's true.
So like most people don't want it to happen because it's not fun. It just sucks.
Yeah.
Even if you technically aren't affected that much, it's not fun.
Someone repost the match. I think it was the top 4 match of the one YCS where it was like Justin Sin versus I forget who he was playing against. But literally, it's just Justin drew and passed, opponent drew passed, Justin drew passed, opponent drew passed, and that just continued in the feature match for about 20 lines of just that. And like that got reposted as soon as his ban list went up. Like the day the ban list got posted, somebody reposted that and was like, thanks Konami. Like, what the fuck are you doing? How could you let a feature match like this and then have this happen? Like, you know.
That's another point. Mine is more of a problem when there are time rules than it is when there isn't.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because a lot of the times it doesn't change the outcome of the game, but it does add 10 minutes to it, and that's as much of an issue as anything else.
Do you think that's the fault of the players though? Like, because when
that's not the player's fault. You can only draw and pass so fast.
But no, I don't mean that. So if you know you can't win through mine, right? Why I hate that people don't scoop. And you know what I'm talking about?
So that's what I mean. Sometimes you know you're going to win, but you still take 10 more minutes to do it. Like it doesn't change that it takes 10 more minutes.
But isn't the onus on the person who lost?
No, but then you lose game 3. So like say your opponent activates mine and all they do is add 10 minutes to the game and you win, you're 1-1 going to game 3. Those are the 10 minutes you needed to win game 3.
No, okay. Let me explain what I mean. So maybe I'm not saying this correctly, or maybe it's being lost in translation, or maybe you do understand what I'm saying and I'm not getting what you're saying. So what I mean is, if I play mine on you, and this has happened to me throughout my Yu-Gi-Oh career often, not with mine because I never played that card in my life, but like other situations where the game's over, like I won, and my opponent, if we're being honest here, they have a pulse and a brain, they know I won too. And they could scoop, but they just are choosing not to for the sake of just like, I'm at a YCS, I paid my money to come here, like I flew here, I booked hotel, whatever. And for whatever reason, they're like, I'm just not scooping. Do you know, like those are people I'm talking about that literally you are wasting both of our time. If somebody played mine on me in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And this is how I felt. I've even written an article about scooping. I think strategically it makes sense to scoop in the sake of time if I know I can't win. And I don't mean scooping and like you have outs. I don't scoop when I have outs. Like if I can actually possibly, even with 1% chance win the game, I will not scoop. But if literally like you played mine and I know my 40 cards does not have an out to this, I can never get that shit off the field. And then I count my deck out. We do all the rigmarole. Like we do everything. I count my deck out. I have less cards than you. You are drawing and passing and not even looking at what you drew. Like we're at that point. This has happened many times, and I'm not speaking of some crazy scenario. This is like a very common thing in 2022. And then when it happens, people just like, they just continue to draw and pass without actually being able to win. And I think that is problematic in itself, which is why my point was like, isn't the onus on the loser to not add 10 minutes because you can't win?
Yeah.
You should know you can't win too.
Very often the loser is the one that needs to win game 3 in time. So that's what I'm saying. The one that needs to scoop is the one that's needs to win game 3 too. Okay. So it's actually in their favor to just not scoop. And then the winner just has to say, oh, I guess I'll lose. So it's like, like it's the outcome of the game isn't changing the whole time. All the player is doing is wasting time.
So literally they're stalling on purpose because it's like stalling. You're basically saying mine, I understand. Mine incentivizes people to waste the clock. And they can legally get away with it because it's like, well, I mean, I don't literally like, there's nothing in Yu-Gi-Oh saying that I have to go draw a pass. Within 5 seconds, there's nothing that a judge can say to me to make it be like, you have to draw and pass because you can't do anything. Like nobody can force you to do that. So you can legally run the clock down because every time you draw a card,
and the judge can't force you to scoop either.
They can't force you to scoop, and they can't force you to be like, you have nothing that you can do. So why are you continuing to play this game out? So legally, right? Like this is where Yu-Gi-Oh gets that gray area where it's like, okay, you are technically stalling. Like you are stalled. You can't win. Your opponent probably even knows you can't win. Both of you are probably competent and like realize, okay, mine's out. You don't have anything for this. There's nothing you can draw, and you're realistically going to lose the game. But because of the time rules and like the way certain decks operate, and I always use the example of the PK deck, like Prank Kids. I always use the example of Prank Kids back when that was really popular and like winning everything and doing really well, is that deck burns you and gains life in main phase, right? Like that is so fucking ignorant. So when mine was popular and Prank Kids was popular and Prank Kids was doing really well at events, it was crazy because it's like I'm incentivized to go into time with this deck. Like I have a higher win rate in time if I just let the clock get lower and then start game 3. So I understand what you mean now, Chris.
Yeah.
When you're talking about like you know your opponent doesn't have an out and they're still like continuing to play even though like it seems redundant. There definitely like are some situations where you're able to like convince your opponent that you have an out even if you don't.
But what does that do?
So it sometimes it incentivizes them to like try to kill you. It puts them on a clock, knowing that like, oh, maybe eventually he will draw the out, and I have to kill him before he draws the out.
Okay, that's fair. Mind games are a part of Yu-Gi-Oh as well. And if you have an opponent that buys into your mind game and you end up winning even one game that way, then it's worth it, right? Like if it only ever works on one person at a YCS and you won one game because your opponent literally decided to break their own mind. And I've seen this actually. So you're not even speaking of something that's like, again, foreign or super obscure. I've actually watched people at locals. And it will always frustrate me, and I can't like coach or say anything during the match, but I would see them break their own mind and go for game, fail, and then lose. And I always wonder, like, what happened that made you think that you needed to, and then the person at the end of the game would be like, I had no way to get rid of mine, dog. Like, if you left that shit there, I 100% lost. And there was nothing I could do, but like I needed you to. And usually it was Sky Strikers a lot of times when I would see that happen. The Sky Striker player would go for a game out of nowhere, like try to make access code and do some crazy ass like I'm going to Widow Anchor kill you, and then something will go wrong and they don't kill them, and then now you realize you're playing Sky Striker without Mystic Mind, and you just die, right? Like the game's over. So I actually understand that too.
Yeah, I fully agree too. Like the moment your opponent stops considering removing their own mind, then you've lost. That's a big part of it. Making sure your opponent continues to think they might.
When you get to the point, for example, I think the finals of nationals this year. So Hansel versus is it Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan, you.
Hansel versus Ryan. Congratulations to both of those duelists. And Ryan recently won a YCS as well. And we all knew that was coming, right? That guy's been on a tear. In the finals, I remember game one where mine resolved. Everyone kind of went crazy because they thought like that was the end of the game, because I think Hansel had made his first turn play, like made a field and everything like that. Then he got mine. And then he ended up winning this game. But the way it happened was Ryan was drawing and passing rather quickly, as in he was the kind of player that said, I am not breaking this. The onus is on you. Like if you have an out, you're going to have to prove it to me. And I love that, like that's high level dueling, right? Like these two guys, finals and nationals, both of them are champions now, and they clearly know a lot about like what's going on. So there was no wasted time in that. Like Hansel was drawing and like he was waiting for he knew exactly how he could out it. And he waited until he got to that moment. He knew exactly what he was going to do on the end phase. And I'm going to kill you on the next turn. And then Ryan was like, if you have an out, by all means, show me, because no one else in this tournament has. I've gotten all the way to the finals and like I've beaten everybody with their strategy. And it hasn't happened yet. So like, are you different? And then Hansel's like, I am different. Like I am the 10-time champion. I've traveled through time to do this again. Like I actually. Well,
so he outed it with Circle, right? That's how he outed it? But
Circle, yeah.
So I think mine is also unique in that, because when I think of mine, I think of like I'd rather be facing a mine than like a skill drainer or a Gozen match in most situations, because mine builds in its own outs. Like it's not just Cosmic Cyclone. You don't even. Most decks happen to have an out, even if it's just like 3 random Link 2s that are generic. There's times where you can just go like Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, end my turn, and that'll clear it. They're not always good, but
yeah, I get what you mean. Like some decks have built-in outs, and I mean even in the finals of nationals, again to reference it again, Blackout exists in the Source Soul deck, right? And Hansel and Ryan both were aware of it, and Ryan never put a second card on the field ever. And I read Blackout, and then obviously Blackout says your opponent has to have 2 cards for you to target and destroy. It's not like Icarus Attack, where a lot of people compare it to Icarus Attack, but like they're very different. Because Icarus, I can actually destroy my own cards. Blackout, you need your opponent to have 2. So Ryan was like, mine, pass. I'm never putting another card on the field, and I'm never looking at what I draw really. Like not literally that, but he pretty much was like draw, pass very quickly. And Hansel would draw, look at his card, be like, okay, this is not my out yet. Discard, pass, and then they went back and forth until it was end phase, circle, kill you. And I love that. Like I love the fact that up until that point, everyone had been just complaining so much about mine and like how toxic it was, and like, oh, the decks can't deal with it and all that stuff. And then you just have like the finals, the only 2-time national champion, at least in the TCG, like in our country, like just showing that I can actually get through this and win the game and take the trophy. But
it's semi-frequent. I see mine outed with like a regular card that we all run in a way that I haven't seen before.
Yeah,
because like there's just so many ways to just use. Oh, there it is. Like I guess so.
It's really interesting because it really comes down to what caliber of player are you playing against. I think a lot of the time, like
Yeah.
I think that me personally, like as someone who understands how like what that card is actually doing to the game, and if I built my deck correctly to mine people out of the game, even if I'm playing a real deck like Sky Striker or Sword Soul or whatever, I'm never breaking mine. Like I would like I just would not do it, and there's no incentive for me to do it. I think I would be exactly like Ryan in that situation. Like I built my deck to do this, and again, I've made it this far with this strategy, never being afraid of somebody randomly like putting together some combo of cards to kill me, and like it just so happens that the person who did that is the guy that won the entire event and subsequently beat you in the finals. But like I would, again, the onus is on you. Like I need you to show me, especially if you play like Pot of Desires or something, because for all I know, like whatever out you had is gone. But yeah, it really comes down. This is such a like layered topic with just Mystic Mine. Like I think we've literally spent 20 minutes now we're at and
talking about a card
about mine,
that
but
isn't on the list.
It is not on a list, and I think that is just crazy. But it also speaks to how polarizing mine is, because some people absolutely hate it. Like they hate the card a lot, and they think that it's like the biggest abomination ever happened to Yu-Gi-Oh, and they want it gone. And the comment section of Konami is in shambles, all about Mystic Mine. There's sprinkles of like Scythe and stuff, but most of the comments that are like negative about any ban list in the weeks leading up before the ban list was even out, every time Konami posted anything, like a new YCS was announced or like anything that they like extravaganza is announced, the comments would be like ban Mystic Mine. Like that would be the comments on here's the new collector Mega 10s coming out. Here's all of the cards that we're reprinting. And the first comment under that, even after seeing these crazy reprints, was ban Mystic Mine. What the fuck?
Yeah.
So
I mean, like the last like 10 times someone activated Mystic Mine on me, I'm pretty sure I've won all 10 times. Like immediately, and it's because of their mine. Like I'll like actively not negate it and then use it as my mine, and like within 2 or 3 turns it'll start happening.
Yeah.
There was like a game where I had like a Verte and a DPE. I think you know what Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer does, right?
I know exactly what it does. Yeah, I actually know a lot of the cards do. So you can speak as though I know them, and if I don't, I'll just like ask you, what does that do?
My opponent activated mine, and I chained DPE, and he tried to send his mine to the graveyard, and I just said no. I'm destroying my Verte and my DPE. And then I just triggered my DPE engrave, and now there's no monsters on the field, and he has a mine up. So he just has to end his turn. What's he gonna freaking do? And then, like that's what I mean. That's my mine now. It was my Mystic Mine the whole time.
Yeah.
So like,
that was like, so there's this really common play, like when Despia was a thing, where this kind of relates back to a card that just got hit, Fairy Tale Snow. But what you would do is you would your opponent would mine you. You would chain your Mirror Jade, which lets you banish a monster on the field. And then you chain Branded in Red, targeting like any monster. You fuse your entire board away, and then, or I'm sorry, you just chain Snow. You don't have to use the Branded in Red. So you just Mirror Jade, banish your own monster, and then chain Snow to banish every monster you control except for Snow. And then the chain will resolve backwards, and the Mirror Jade will banish the Snow, so you have no monsters. So it's the exact same situation where it's like, well, you can't play either. So like you have to pass, and then the Despia player will just kill you the next turn.
It's actually crazy. As you were saying this play, I was like, this sounds so neg. But then you said you killed them on the next turn, which is wild.
Oh yeah, very often you have to neg that hard. But you have to recognize that your opponent just negged by playing the mine in the first place.
Yeah, it sounds so crazy to be like, I'm going to banish my own monster and also Snow 7 of my cards away. And like on the next turn now, I'm going to kill you. Like I did all of that with the intent that next turn you are going to die. That I mean, if it works, right? Like you guys know me, especially when it comes to like, I think anything fusion related. Joe, you're one of the experts, so I'm gonna trust what you say. It's why we have you here. I'm gonna trust what you say about like you can kill people with Despia that way, and it sounds really cool. And you said it was a pretty common play, like against amongst the people who really know what they're doing. What do you think before we switch from talking about Mystic Mine and get to the rest of the ban list, right? I do, because it's such a big card, and a lot of people do want to hear this type of discussion about it. I was going to say, what do you think about mine just like existing another format and the cards that, okay, so right now we're at a situation where mine is kind of bad. I want to say, I'm not sure if I'm speaking correctly here. I'm assuming, because I didn't see it much in the top 8 of the last YCS and Niagara, but mine, because people are playing shit like main deck Spell Canceller that they can easily get out and main deck Eradicator, is it safe to say that like at the end of the format that mine actually wasn't as much of a problem anymore?
Yeah, I think so. So like the Sprite deck had the out with like Smashers, which banishes a card on the field.
Yep.
and that's searchable out. And then Eradicator and Spell Canceller are some pretty crazy cards. Just like being able to rip the mine out of the hand or whatever, and even if you draw it later, like a turn or two later, it still gets discarded. So, like, I think that it wasn't very good, but with these hits, on some of the things, it makes like the tier combo a little bit less consistent because you would still use the snow for like link climbing and stuff, but it's still definitely doable and still definitely will be a tier 1 deck.
Oh yeah, so that's the thing. Do you guys know how aware are you guys of Darkwing Blast, like the cards in that next set?
I remember when it was first announced months ago, Chris, and you were telling me about it, and there was a lot of Blackwing cards.
Yeah,
even though
we only knew about Blackwings at the time, and they're very funny, but they're not good. I'm sorry for saying anything.
That's fine. I don't care about the bad. I never care about the bad cards, but like, what impactful stuff is coming? Because I know and you like really like the future.
So we've been, since the ban list came out, Steve Gleason, Julian Lipoff, and myself have been testing post Darkwing Blast like the entire time.
Yeah, the relevant, because for the basically the YCS format.
So you mentioned Smashers. Tearlaments is getting a quick play spell that shuffles a spell or trap on the field back into the deck with Tearlaments in the name. Yeah, so that'll help a lot. Tearlaments is getting a new fusion monster that kind of like replaces all of its high ceiling combos a little bit. Now you can just at any time go Kikolos, send something, and then just make Lulukaros. They're getting a 3k attack level 8 fusion that you can just make with a Kikolos and any other Tearlaments monster that if it's sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect, it summons itself immediately. Not every time, but like while it's fusion summoned.
Yeah.
But it's also just Solemn Warning. It just is Solemn Warning.
What? It has the
it is Solemn Warning.
It negates Nib, which like makes it really ridiculous.
Yeah.
These are this is tier, like this is the tier deck. That's already basically the best deck, right? Like it's already the top 8 of the last YCS was 6 tier, 1 Exo Sister, and like 1 Sprite, I think. So it's safe to say that tier was already the best deck. So it's getting better.
Yeah, I think we have like I think there's a non-zero chance of a tier 0 tiered format happening. The only thing that might keep it from happening, there are 3 different names of level 6 dragons that are all in the Bisted archetype. That I think if I tell you what they do, you will lose your mind, Frazier. I don't know if Joe, do you know about Bisted cards already?
Not super well.
I don't know about them at all.
There's 3 names of level 6 dragons.
Okay.
They're all level 6 dark dragons. They all have good stats, like I think 25. Yeah, all 25 2000. You can target one light. They all have the same first effect. You can target one light or dark monster in either graveyard, banish it, and if you do special summon this card from your hand, this is a quick effect if your opponent controls a monster. So we're getting 9 new names of DD Crows that are all +1s because they all do something on summon too.
Oh my god!
And they add each. One of them adds the other ones on summon at the end phase. You like summon it at the end phase, you get it. So now like tier is kind of being held back simply by the existence of those cards. But then at the same time, those cards also hurt. You can fizzle because they have to banish to summon themselves. Bisted monsters can fizzle each other out. So it's actually just like,
oh no. So
yeah, it's a very
have them
funny.
And I have them, then we just try to fuck each other, and
you both banish the same monster. Yeah. It's wacky. It's goofy and wacky.
And in tier, also from what I understand, I just want to insert this in here because I don't know how much of a meme this is, but like Exo Sister is almost designed to basically beat the tier element deck, right?
Yeah.
Like that is. That obviously I know like Ryan's deck had mine and goes in match in it as well, but at the same time, I don't think he would have been playing Exo Sisters if he didn't have to. So obviously the Exo Sister part of the deck, because people like to go so hyperbole with it and be like, oh, his deck was just mine or just goes in match, just floodgates.
Try to keep it down a little bit, buddy. I thought I was muted. My bad.
Right?
Wow.
Oh, people. Go ahead.
I muted myself on. My computer. Don't worry about it.
All right. Anyway, so outside of Kenny spazzing out,
hey man, these motherfuckers are loud.
I don't hear them, so I think only you can hear them, Ken.
Oh, all right. Well.
All right. So what was that? Okay, I was saying that Exo Sister, right? Like. It clearly is some kind of anti-tier element strategy, and that makes sense too because Konami does stuff like that. They'll make a best deck, and they will blatantly make a deck that's kind of designed to beat the best deck, but it doesn't make the deck that beats the best deck the best deck. Like you have to always understand that. Yes, so there's Dragon Rulers and there was spell books, right? And then like Dragon Rulers was the best deck. There's no revisionist history ever going to happen on this channel. Like Dragon Rulers was the best, and then Spellbook was second, and Spellbook was kind of designed in a way, just with the support cards they had, that it could beat Dragon Rulers, because like Jalgan's annoying, Kaiko's annoying, all that other bullshit, right? But at the end of the day, Dragon Rulers is still the king of that format. It's called Dragon Ruler format, right? Like it's not even called Dragon Ruler and Spellbook format. It's just called Dragon Ruler format.
Yeah.
And so like Tier has Exo Sister, it's kind of like an anti version of it, and I'm just wondering from you guys' perspective, because I'm sure you guys don't actually play Exo Sisters, but like, how real is Exo Sister against Tier elements?
In that analogy, Exo Sister is worse than Spellbook by a lot.
Okay, so if you're trying to say Tier is the Dragon Rulers and Exo Sister is the Spellbook, is not really
Exo
cool.
Sisters is like the Constellar.
Okay.
Which also,
okay.
Which also did that, but
Yes.
was Constellar.
Yeah.
I know Sean McCabe won with it, but besides that,
I don't think he wrote with Constellar, right? Or no, he did. It was Constellar. It wasn't Satellar.
Yeah,
it was Constellar.
I remember thinking like, of course, it was Sean that did that.
Yes,
Frickin'.
he loves his anti decks. But how do you feel about that, Joe? Like, do you feel like Exo Sister is not really able to stand up against Tier elements realistically, or do you
it depends who goes first.
Okay, so that you think it's very heavy on. I could see that. I could see that because I remember Ophion, right? So remember the in Dragon Lore format, Chris, I know you were around for this, and Kenny too, but in Dragon Lore format there was that Evil Swarm deck. And Evil Swarm summoned an Exceeds monster that literally said level 5 and higher monsters cannot be summoned, period. So basically if they went first, it locked out all of the Dragon Rulers. Like you couldn't summon a single Dragon Ruler. You basically couldn't play, and that was kind of the point of it. And I think Konami did that intentionally, knowing that Dragon Rulers was the best deck. They just had Evil Swarm at the exact same time. And no one would ever say Evil Swarm was like better than Dragon Rulers, but if it went first, it had a really good chance of actually beating the Dragon Ruler deck game one. And then after that, it's like you're probably going to lose more times than you won't, because Electric Virus exists and like all these other things. Like I had cards side decked against that. And also, if I went first, you definitely lost, because what the fuck is your deck gonna do against Double Draco Sack? Like, and the God forbid I know you're actually playing Evil Swarm, right? Because then I just make my first turn. Like, you're playing a Tier Mirror, you make Abyss Dweller. You're playing against Exo Sister. I don't know what the Tier deck does, but I'm sure it has something it does where it's like, you're playing Exo Sister going second, you can't win.
Now that it makes Bornate, you kind of just do your normal thing.
Yeah, you just like, play, right?
The like really sacky part obviously is like Shifter, like the card is super ridiculous. Like I could go on a huge rant about how lingering card effects are the most unhealthy part of the game.
Shifter is worse than mine by a huge margin. There it is. I hate Shifter.
Oh my god.
I hate it.
That's hyperbole.
That's kind of a take.
Right, that is
Chris
hyperbole. I hate it
speaks in hyperbole. He speaks.
I hate it so much.
Guys, if you're listening to this, Chris Lin speaks in hyperbole.
You're right. That's too far.
So don't attack him, because I understand what he's saying. Like it's not. There's no way.
Shifter's the one I hate more personally.
And that's fine. I'm sure that Jesse Cotton also probably hates Shifter more than he hates Mystic Mind, considering what just happened. But like, if we're being real, like Mystic Mind is still that girl. But I get that Shifter, and what Joe said is really. It's nice to hear that put into words. Cards that have a lingering effect on the game. So Maxi, Dimensional Shifter, Dimensional Barrier, Harpy's Featherstorm. There's a ton. These cards are fucking awful for the game. Like they're awful.
I don't know who it was. I definitely remember reading this on Facebook like years ago. But like someone said, like in an ideal world, Yu-Gi-Oh would be all interaction, and there wouldn't be any negates, and there wouldn't be any lingering effects. Which is like actually Marcus. Marcus like talked about this when he was on the podcast with you guys, but he was like talking about how the game is like moving more towards like ending on 6 negates rather than like 3 or 6 interactions.
Yes. Yeah.
Saying
that's like healthier.
Yeah. Well, Brandon was actually a very cool step away from that, right? And I was like really happy.
I agree.
That was a very cool format, and it immediately snapped back into position again. But like, I really like that one.
So you guys are saying that the branded format, it wasn't about setting up a bunch of negates. Both players could actually play without like getting negated on everything they did.
Yeah.
And it were just more interactions as opposed to just like, I set up 4 negates, you don't have a droplet or a dark ruler no more, you instantly lose.
Yeah, it was like an interesting format with like even Sword Soul in there too, but the deck that ended up winning that YCS was Pojang's striker deck with, Barrier, Mind, Demise of the Lands, Metaverse, all those good cards.
Yeah.
We were trying to interact too much. We forgot
exactly.
our hubris.
So I think that's the problem, because we could kind of wrap up this entire segment by saying every time you guys get to what could be a good format, I think you're going to get scraped by a guy who shows up with a mind deck and just says fuck all that noise, right? Because you guys are saying you had a chance at a really good format, and then some guy came in and was like, here's a Mystic Mind deck for you, and you guys are interacting and playing this fair Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm just trying to cut all that off. Like, I'm just going to win this YCS by cutting off every chance you ever had of interacting and playing.
Yep.
That's the unfortunate problem, is that everybody wants to play the most fun version of Yu-Gi-Oh, but also everybody wants to win.
So unfortunately, those two things are at odds with each other.
And they're very much at odds, because usually the way to make the best deck is to make it so that you're not playing the most fun version of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that is true. Like, I can say I don't think any of my opponents, when I won a YCS, had a pleasant time losing their entire hand turn 1 to Royal Tribute, right? Like, it was not like, so on one hand, while you say everyone wants to play the most fun version of Yu-Gi-Oh, that is true, but I also want to win. And in order for me to win, me playing a spell card on turn 1 with 0 interaction that drops your entire hand, and then I just make you sign a slip and tell you good game when I know damn well it wasn't a good game. I'm not that asshole, by the way. I don't do that. If literally both games was me going Royal Tribute and you not getting to play and me just literally flipping a spy next turn, hitting you for like 3,700 or more and winning the game, I'm not going to say good game, but the point is,
you apologize. I'm curious.
Oh God, I hate when people apologize.
Hold on, I'm trying to
People should not apologize. It's just part of the game.
Yeah, I don't think I'm an apologist. I'm thinking about it though. Give me a second, because I'm an asshole, and I think a lot of people who know me know that I am an asshole, but I'm not always an asshole. You know what it is? My opponent brings out the worst in me. It depends on their energy.
Yeah, I agree completely.
If my opponent is being an asshole because of the fact that like my deck is doing what it was designed to do, even if it's some cheesy bullshit, like, dog, I'm sorry, but like, this is the format. Like, if you flew here just like I flew here, and we're flooding each other out, or like I did some turn 1 FTK type nonsense, and you know that this exists, I know it exists, you know that it could happen, I know it could happen, I don't need to hear you huffing and puffing and then cursing and like going crazy about how this format's so bullshit. I hate when people get like really negative like that during the match. It's very uncomfortable, and it doesn't it's not pleasant for anyone to just sit there and like basically low-key try to berate your opponent because you just lost to like something that unfortunately they have no power over it. Like the ban list allow these cards to be playable. It does suck when you lose like that, but at the same time, like, do not berate your opponent for it. So I'm the kind of guy, I don't apologize. I kind of move off of their energy. So when my opponent's like, yeah, this game's so bad, and they like deciding, I'll agree. I'll be like, yeah, man, it's terrible. Like, I feel so, and then like I'll kind of go with that. Like you know what I mean? Like, I won't open it up myself. I won't beat you with some bullshit and then be like, I'm so sorry, man. Like, yeah, I wish they would play better. For example, I talked about this on the podcast before. I played to mid at the YCS that TJ Kinsley won undefeated with Necros. I think that was my first time ever playing to mid. And he maxed me every turn of both games. I did not get to, I basically didn't get to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And at the time, this is before there were a lot of these kinds of cards that Joe described earlier that put a condition on the game, and like there's nothing you could do after that. Like, once Max C's activated, it's just activated. There was no Ash Blossom, there was no way to negate it really, and so you just had to hold that. And I got Max C'd every turn of the game, and I got 2-0'd, I'm pretty sure, and I lost. And I was just quiet. I was obviously annoyed. I was definitely annoyed because I don't like losing like that. And I was like, man, this is a really good player. We're finally getting to play. I hope this is good, because the Necros mirror match has the propensity to be good. Like, it can be good. I'm not going to say it always was, but it had the propensity to actually be an interactive and decent mirror match, except if one person draws Max C, and that's exactly what happened, and it was so unfortunate. So like, as I was deciding and like not saying anything, he opened up the conversation of like, I'm really sorry, like that fucking sucks, like, yeah, I know, like the format. And then we just had that kind of back and forth talk, like two adults who understand that the game is flawed. And it's okay that it's flawed. We both love Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not quitting from this. You're not quitting from this. I think he did quit after that, but like, no one realistically is quitting like after it happens. It's like, yeah, this just fucking sucks. And I kind of just go off their energy. I don't usually start off by beating someone or like whatever, or losing to someone and then saying crazy shit unless they do. Now, one of the things I hate, and I know that this is like completely off topic of the ban list, but since this was like brought up, Joe, because you asked me this question, it's making me think about so much stuff. One of the things I hate And like, if you really ever want to get under my skin, I probably shouldn't even tell people this, but I do not like when people like beat me and then they act like everything was just normal and it was some like really sacky or bullshit stuff. Like, do not act like everything is cool if you won, but you know it was like the most illegitimate way to win.
Got outplayed, Frazier.
Like, I hate that. Like, that shit drives me crazy. I usually don't say, and when I lose, I usually can be very, very quiet, very like stoic. And like, you can clearly tell, like, I'm not happy. I'm not a person I don't like losing. I don't think really anyone, I don't really know many people who enjoy it. But like, I've gotten so much better, especially in the last 5 years of me playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, that like, I can lose. And I think it's really, and I really do believe this, I think it's just because I've had a lot of success in Yu-Gi-Oh that I stopped caring as much about losses and you just kind of accept it for what it is. Like, I've already gotten a lot out of the game, right? So I'm not somebody who's like super hungry for a win or like super hungry to like top a YCS, because I've done those things. Like most players, that's like the big thing that makes them so emotional about the game, right? It's like they want that win. They want to top their first event or stuff like that. And that makes you like very hyper emotional about it. I don't really have that part of it anymore. And like, I didn't have it on my way out, but you can always bring it out of me by just being a dickhead. Like, when people are just being a dickhead at the end of a match, you can get like the old me out of me at any moment by just doing that.
Yeah. Well, anyway. I will say, just to add on to the last, hopefully this is the last thing, I don't start another conversation, but I played Plunder Patrol for that whole last format for like a year almost.
Yeah.
And the entire time I was playing it, people were very positive when I was playing Plunder Patrol. Like, whether I won or lost, everyone was like, wow, that was a surprisingly good game. And I would get that a lot, because it was just like, I can't win in a way that's unreasonable. I can only win by just playing.
Yeah. People, so like, Yu-Gi-Oh players tend to respect that. I think.
Yeah, there's like
Yu-Gi-Oh
no floodgates or anything. Just play them.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh players tend to respect decks that are not tier 0 or tier 1 or whatever. Like, cause that deck is like the deck. I know you say it's like good and stuff like that, and I'm sure that it's fantastic and all that. But at the end of the day, in the conversation when people talk about the format,
I don't like the way he said that.
I'm trying to say,
the way Frazier said, "I'm sure it's fantastic." He doesn't believe a word he just said.
Well, Chris has showed me how his deck works, and like when it goes second and the opponent has a field, it ruins it. Like, that pirate deck destroys you if you've played the game at all. Like, if you tried to play the game, it basically Inzectors you. Inzectors is a deck that used to punish you.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, for playing
the game.
Yeah.
And if you don't play the game, it can do stuff, but it's not as crazy as when they tried to play the game and then you just come over the top and destroy them. So I understand its place in the format, and like, he showed it to me, but it wasn't the best deck in the format, right? Yeah. Like, it just wasn't. And that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say it in that like really weird roundabout way. Kenny's obviously calling me out because he's an asshole, but like,
no, he's right. Like, yeah. It's not the best deck in the format. I played it for a reason, because it like takes advantage of specific things I like to take advantage of.
Yep, and that's totally fine. And you could yeah.
Oh, just in the context of this conversation, I just wanted to say, like, I don't know. It was at a very pleasant time. Yeah, I'm gonna miss it because I know I'm immediately gonna go back to like my opponent being angry at me and me being angry at my opponent and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So here we go again.
All right, guys.
Yu-Gi-Oh would be better if it was all tier 2 decks. Yeah.
Maybe.
It low-key would. That would basically be Edison format, just like if there was a modern version of Edison format, because that's essentially what Edison is. All the decks are basically tier 2. There's no tier 0 deck, right? Like, there's nothing that is so far ahead that it has a like 70% win rate against everything. Like, there's no one deck that just beats every deck, low difficulty type stuff. You know, there's just nothing in Edison format. But that's a different topic too. Okay, so let us move on finally. So we mentioned really quickly that Fairy Tale Snow is the very first card on the ban list. The way this is, at least the way we have it up on our screens. Fairy Tale Snow is gone. Thoughts on that?
Man, it was deserved.
Should have never came back.
I said hallelujah. Yep. I messaged my friend Snow is banned, and he said, heck yeah.
Did you guys know that Snow was going to be as problematic as it was when it first came back?
No, but then I saw Jesse doing Jesse things, and I was like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Gleason said to me, this card never should have been written, and now we have to play it again. And I said, oh, and then here we are.
Yeah. How long has it been around again? It's not been that long, right?
Yeah, I believe it came back in like March, maybe.
Oh, so it came back this year.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's just gone immediately. That's pretty bad. I mean, that means that it should have never came off if they had to ban it again.
Yeah.
Because realistically, they probably realized it's not going to get any better. Like, Snow is not going to get any worse as tier becomes better and better. Right?
Yeah.
Snow is not going to get worse. It's not going to go out of anyone's deck. It's going to continue to dominate. And I guess for people, I always try to speak in terms of people who really don't understand why cards are super problematic. Maybe people don't see it. I try not to assume that everyone gets those concepts, but from what I understand, Snow is essentially a turn ender against a lot of decks.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of parts of it that make it super degenerate. Like the tier decks literally mill like 20 cards at least turn one. So you have a lot of like fodder for it. And that lets you like link climb into bigger cards like Appaloosa or something like that. And then you get into like aspects where you have times where you can like snow multiple times on your opponent's turn. So like you'll summon Snow, set one of their monsters, they'll play another card, summon another monster, and then you'll use something like IP to like it lets you link summon on your opponent's turn. So you use Snow as material, make whatever link you want to, and then summon Snow back again. Book of another monster.
Yeah, there's no way they can play because essentially you are debarriering them. Like it is a baby like Scythe. It's a baby debarrier in a way because face down monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh don't do shit. Right, like that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh works. Like if a monster's face down, you can't link with it. You can't do until they power creep link summoning. And I'm sure that at the end of it, they probably will make it where you can link summon this card by using set monsters like that. We might.
We have that. I think we actually have that card you just said already. I'm not sure if that's true.
Is it busted though? Is the question because that's
probably not.
I remember I used to say when Pendulums was a mechanic. When Pendulum first came out, I said when this gets power crept, there's going to be a 0 scale. And that's going to be like not okay. And the second that happened, they completely overhauled the entire pendulum mechanic.
Yeah, it's true.
Like the pendulums, they were like, 0 scales because then there's nothing that you can't pendulum summon if there's a 0 scale. And it's like that scale is a 0. So everything in between 0 and like 12, I can just go throw up on the field. Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
Before it'd be like, oh, well, level 1 monsters can never be pendulum summoned for so long of that mechanic being around.
I got a little use out of 0 scales too. I remember thinking every time I activated it, I was like, why can I do this? Why am I doing any of this? I like pendulum summon like a DDD monster, like the level 1 DDD Kepler or whatever. Just be like, well, that's not okay. As I'm doing it, like that's wrong. I shouldn't be doing that.
That's Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, Ronin Tonan's gone. Where does this leave the Sprite deck?
Still good.
I love that the Toad is still a pro. He still comes around to fuck shit up.
Ronin Tonan is a really nice one. I like it a lot.
Was he banned before this?
I don't think so.
It was just Substitute that was banned, and then Ronin Tonan. So he's only just recently become like super problematic, I guess, because of the Sprite deck and just summoning Toad. Even though I don't know if problematic is the right word to use there, but I just kind of threw it out because it made that deck, it enabled that deck's turn 1 Toad play and all that very easily. Go ahead, Chris. What were you going to say?
Well, we always complain about them hitting not the cause of the problem, but like the problem. Like whenever they hit, like they always like half hit it or like they hit the end point instead of the beginning. They finally just hit the end point because Toad gave flavor to a lot of decks that needed it. Like the Bahamut Shark part of it helps a lot of decks that are not that the best deck ever. They're just good enough because of that. And then like this is just like a nice like, we're not gonna mess with like everyone's fun deck. We're just gonna solve only the problem. It's like a very nice specific
because they do tend to ban all the symptoms and not the actual disease.
Exactly.
What I mean by that is we've seen Crystron Hakufibrax get so many tuners banned. That is like a great example of them banning the symptoms and not the disease.
We were just talking about this when we had Dominic Couch on. He was talking about Blackwing Steam the Cloak, how that card's really cool and fun, but it can never come back because of Hakufibrax. And then literally a week later, the list comes out, gets rid of Hakufibrax, and brings back Steam the Cloak.
Which is why I was so happy to see this list, because as soon as I saw it, I like, that's one of the things I always hate the most about Banlist, and I just saw them like take 2 of the biggest versions of that and just flip them around and say, we're done with that. I was very happy immediately.
I like that they're unbanning the tuners that got banned that didn't really deserve to be banned on their own. I think one of the tuners that probably will never come back is like Gofu, right? Like that card's fucking insane.
Oh yeah, that one's a different. That one is for everything.
But like Glow Up Bulb, I think Jeff Jones wrote a status or something about it. Somebody wrote something this week saying like Glow Up Bulb can come back. It will not be that crazy.
Nope.
And,
nope, Militaire every time.
Oh,
not doing it.
Well,
I don't want it. Get it away from me.
Is it cost a mil though, right?
Oh my god, it is. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a cost. See, I still know stuff, guys.
I did not think about that hard enough.
Anyways, so yeah, they can now unban a lot of bullshit tuners that got banned because of Hakufibrax. And I'm actually surprised that only Blackwing, Steam the Cloak, and Mecha Phantom Beast O-Line are the only two that got unbanned. I feel like there's more, but maybe I'm incorrect in that. But I just feel like Glow Bulb is already one of them.
Yeah. There was like Jet Synchron, but they brought that one back.
They brought back Jet, yep.
We got that earlier.
Is Spore banned?
Oh, Spore. Is Spore not banned? It might not be banned.
I actually don't know.
Yeah. Plague Spreader Zombie, is that legal?
That's at 3.
Plague's at 3, yeah.
Okay, is he just not?
That card is good.
It is good, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, good. I was surprised. I thought you were gonna say that card is unplayable. Why?
No, I'm playing it now.
I'm playing it now.
I'm playing it right now. I can't anymore because they banned like every card in my freaking extra deck. But besides that,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think Steam the Cloak is going to be like an issue.
Oh really?
Eventually, yeah. Like probably sooner than later, especially in like the danger tier deck. Just because it's a dark, so you can mill anything. You can mill it and then tribute something, and then you have a different type. Dark monster, so it's a winged beast, and then when it goes to grave, it summons a token, and you can use the token.
It leaves the field. It's when it leaves the field.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, even if
it doesn't even have to go to grave, so they can shifter you, and you still get that effect.
You get tokens, yeah.
Yeah, so not only is the token an aqua, which is neat because all the tier cards are aqua.
Why is the token? I'm reading the card now.
Because he's Steam the Cloak.
Yeah, this is a lot. But also like. If you're trying to link, like, assuming you're using the Steam the Cloak as a material to make Curious, you can use the token in Curious to make Griffin, since Griffin just needs different name monsters. It doesn't need effect monsters.
Yeah.
So it just makes it really easy to make Griffin. So you just, set Eradicator from your deck.
Yep.
Okay, so
there's also another thing about it where, like, Steam is, as a tuner, you're supposed to not be. It's supposed to it has this like weird restriction on like when it comes back, you can only use it to synchro summon for Blackwing monsters.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can only use it to synchro summon if the other monsters are Blackwings, but you can make anything you want. There's this weird interaction that comes up with the fact that Zephyros is also good and in a lot of these tier.
Yep.
So like sometimes the level 7 even comes up. Like it's like all these different issues at the same time.
Yeah, I've seen Zephyros being.
Which is why it pops up in FTKs. Steam pops up in FTKs, like if you're watching them happen, like relatively frequently. Yeah, it'll just pop up. You'll be like, oh, there's another one. There he is again. It's like the only reason it works. Again,
I feel like Zephyros is one of those cards that always finds its way being problematic, and it has no in between ever. It's always either too much or nothing at all. Right? Like there's never an in between with Zephyros the Elite.
That's true.
Steam, according to Joe, and like I have reason to believe that it does sound like this card. After reading it now, understanding what it really does, I do think this card's gonna be a problem like sooner than later as well.
It's not different than Dandelion, so the fact that they think it is very weird to me. It's actually almost the same card as Dandelion in a lot of
some
ways.
cases it's better. Like Joe said, it is an aqua. The token that you get is an aqua, which that is relevant nowadays. So yeah, so that's like all the stuff surrounded by like Christian Hakufibrax.
It's because Blackwing cards are coming out.
That also is that's also true. It's perfect time.
They're just messing around. They're goofing.
This is a business, right? They have to sell cards and stuff. And okay, so O-Lion, Mecha Phantom Beast O-Lion. Is that card problematic at all, or is it just like Hakufibrax made it problematic?
Yeah, just Hug made it crazy.
Yeah, that one's a little less of
so we don't have to worry about that one. Like I'm not going to see it the next YCS. O-Lion is everywhere.
I'll never say never, but probably not.
It was like really good when you had Hulk and you had Auroradon, but now it doesn't really matter anymore because both of them are gone.
Okay, well, this is the symptoms are back and the diseases are gone, so I'm fine with that. I like direct hits. I hate when they just play around and fucking ban everything else. Okay, Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. I've seen this card.
Thank God.
I've seen this card.
Thank Christ. And the crazy thing about Chaos Ruler is that I never thought it would get banned because it was such a good hit. Like I kept telling, it's one of those things. Like, did they really actually do what I wanted? Because before I was like, oh, you don't need to hate Chaos
to the
Ruler.
Point like you have like the craziest Stockholm syndrome where you're so used to being abused. You're so used to being abused by Konami not doing the right thing that you convince yourself that they won't do the right thing and ban this card, so you just accepted it as a part of your game. Like Chaos Ruler is just here to stay, and it is what it is. So he is the first time I read him, I just couldn't believe that I was reading like a fucking generic synchro that has that much like his stats are crazy, but then his effect just sounds like somebody went into Yu-Gi-Oh card maker and just started typing. Like he comes out and he excavates the top 5, and it's like add a light or dark guy from the excavated cards to your hand. So that's already like by itself, that's already really good. And then other cards get sent to the grave, right? Like do they get?
Yep.
Like, they get
so
sent
you
to
just send like the tiers, and they all trigger, and
it's
ridiculous.
So outrageously good. But then if that wasn't enough, because it's never enough, you can just banish Light and Darks to bring him back, and then he does more stupid shit because he's just like a monster. And
so like the deck that Dom topped Niagara with did this like really neat combo where like you make Chaos Ruler with the Punk cards, and then when you synchro into it, the level 5, the Deer Note, summons back a tuner. So then you just link the Chaos Ruler and the tuner into Hulk. And then Hulk summons this level 2 tuner called Shinobi Necro.
Yep.
And what that card does is when it's banished from grave, it's a dark monster, it special summons itself back.
Yeah.
So you use Chaos Ruler's effect in the grave to banish the Necro, and then summon it back, and then you make a level 10 synchro, which is Baron usually.
Yes.
Yeah. That's actually that's the deck I'm playing right now.
Yeah, that deck is cool.
But it's Punk Runic actually. So there's a additional layer to that where if you have the Chaos Ruler and the Zeomin and any other monster, if you make the Hulk without the Chaos Ruler, you can get the Shinobi Necro. You get 2 level 10, so you can make Changing, and then the summon of the it triggers the Changing to make the Baron.
I was watching Silverman at AU, our locals. He was playing when Runic first came out, like the very first day. I was at locals. Silverman was playing around with like a Runic deck that had the Punk engine, and he
got that deck list from me.
Okay, well he was playing.
Yeah, I taught him how to play it. Yeah,
he was just like fishpolling it. Like he didn't have an opponent. He was just showing me what happens if you have teleport by itself and nothing else. Yep. Well, a card in hand.
Yeah.
But like he would just go teleport gives you all of this, and I was like, well, that's not okay. Like that. And every time Chaos Ruler was involved, and I said, well, that card is obviously problematic. It was problematic before a lot of this. It's going to continue to be a problematic card. And like you guys said, I am also surprised that it got banned already.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a pretty good hit. That was
because the community didn't recognize it as a problem yet, so they just banned it because they knew internally it was a problem. Yeah. And it's like that's like a very surprising like. It really doesn't happen that way. Usually, it takes everyone screaming about it being wrong for it to get banned, which is why I'm also surprised mine didn't get banned. As much as I don't think it needs to, I'm surprised it didn't.
Yeah, I mean mine. I don't know what they're thinking with that, but we already gave that shit 40 minutes. So Red Reboot. Red Reboot was at 1. This is one of the funniest cards in Yu-Gi-Oh to me because it has a lot of text that's unnecessary. The card can really just be summed up and just say negate a trap and win the game that turn. It does a lot more than that, but honestly, none of that shit ever matters. Like it gives your opponent a trap card out their deck, and they can't activate any more traps, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it really just says negate a trap. Your opponent can't do shit else. They lose. Like it could literally just say that on the card, and that would be the card's effect, and everybody would accept it as like law. It's banned now. I'm not sure how you guys feel. I don't know if some people I feel like wanted it at 3. Like I saw people saying this should be at 3.
It's gotta be at 3. I don't know. I'm a little biased, but like, if you think about stuff like they're setting Eradicator from their deck, there is no counterplay to that except for Reboot.
Yeah.
And like I also am like against the Saki one-ofs. I was surprised they didn't do anything to Call by the Grave. I think that card.
Oh, I hate that card so much. Only because it's at 1. I don't actually hate the card.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate that it's
same thing. Exactly the same thing.
It being at 1 is so fucking annoying.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean like it also makes cards like Anti-Spell like so much better because if you want to think about the cards that like are good against the trap decks, it's like Lightning Storm. Or like Twin Twister, which is like okay, I guess, but like the main one is like Storm. So like you have the Anti-Spell, like it makes Storm like unusable. You have to have something like Evenly now to like even try to play.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I mean, I'm glad they chose a 0. I'm glad they chose a side instead of just leaving it at 1.
1
for the reasons we just discussed. Yeah,
McCabe
but agreed. Like it's the only counterplay for a lot of cards.
A long time ago, McCabe used to say that cards just should not be at 1 period. And obviously that is like a topic in itself to discuss, but his whole thing was you really just can't play around a one-off, and it's so annoying because one-offs tend to also be very powerful, right? Because that's the reason why Konami justifies putting them at 1 to begin with. So like having a card at 1-of and be such a powerful impactful card, let's think of Instant Fusion, right? This card is
crazy. What a good example.
It's at 1 and it's annoying as fuck when your opponent sees it, am I right?
Yeah.
Same thing with call by the grave. People remove the toad, and like you're playing a sprite, and you happen to have the call by, and then the toad gets removed. The game is basically over. Like it's just such a huge hit, and you can't really like play around this one-of unsearchable card. So every time it comes up, it just changes the state of the game so much. Like, oh, what happened to you last round? Oh, he drew Instant Fusion. What happened to you last round? He had the fucking call by. Like I hear that so I walked around regionals and I would just hear that so often throughout the last year. And it's like, damn, that is just annoying. It's just annoying to have these one-of. So Red Reboot being a one-of and like a very powerful one-of too, like a game ending one-of is annoying. And now it's gone. Yeah. So I know that like Joe, you're one of the people who really wishes that it went the opposite way and it just went to 3. I am a person that's like 3 or banned. So this is like them banning it is fine with me only in the sense that like I hate it being at 1 and it being at 3 just makes like a lot of decks unplayable, which is funny because I hate those decks a lot of the times too, like the floodgate decks that just like you would not be.
Although I will say like after seeing this ban list, one of the decks I've started testing more heavily is Labyrinth. It's a trap. I've started testing trap decks.
I saw Blackjack being used again. I was very confused.
There's a Labyrinth combo no one knows about, and I won't say it, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay,
I can tell you after the podcast ends.
Okay, I mean that's absolutely fair. You can just
send a video.
Yeah, you'll.
Yep.
I will view that and I will say what I think about it and then we'll discuss it after. But yeah, so Red Reboot's gone. I guess we could just kind of speed run a little bit of this now. So Cyberjar is Substitute. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth and say that neither one of these cards is going to be relevant right now.
Substitute reprint. Let's go.
Oh, did it get reprinted?
Is that what's happening?
That's what like usually ends up happening, right?
That's true.
They'll like unban something and it'll be reprinted as like a common in the next OTS pack.
You know what? You're right because Edison format right now, one of the most expensive cards that's low rarity is Substitute. It might be the most expensive low rarity card.
How much is it?
At one point it was at one point it was 30.
Oh.
Yeah. At one point it was $30 for a rare, which is fucking absurd. But like even $15 for a rare that is over 10 years old, like the card's over a decade old now, and it literally commands a price that is not $1, which is just like annoying.
Well, we know they know about Edison, right? Because the last OTS pack was like all Edison cards.
Super Caius, Gores, Night Assailant, like Lone Fire Blossom. It's blatant. Konami, they're easing their way into making Edison format legitimate. And while I am happy that they are acknowledging it in their own weird way, I wish that they would just put the fucking foot on the gas and just go full force. That way I could take Edison more serious because as of right now, it is getting a little boring to me just playing locals every week. And like every 3 months I get to play, or like every 2 months, I play like an online RBET tournament. Shout out to E3 Yugioh. But like those tournaments are fun, but I really wish that there was a competitive in real life big tournament that was backed by Konami. Like I want that to be a real thing. They've never really backed another format outside of just their standard format too much. Like they've always had little side events, stuff like that, but we never really get like there was never such thing as a traditional YCS, like a YCS where you just play traditional format. Traditional is considered a format, but there's never been support for it, right? And so it's just like Edison is not as extreme as traditional because I don't think traditional would be fun, quite frankly. No, but Edison is a format that is very popular, I think, at this point, like especially now. And I think that them unbanning Substitute is exactly what you said, Joe. It's going to get reprinted in some kind of pack. It'll make it cheaper for the Edison players who want to play Frog decks, which is a very popular deck in that format. I, again, put my foot in my mouth, but I don't think Substitute is going to be relevant without Ronin Tonin in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I just don't know what what would have to happen. Like, what does it mean to send a bunch of frogs to your grave in 2022? But somebody might come out with something that just like FTKs you, and maybe I'm an idiot.
I also think it's not a problem.
Yeah.
How cool would it be if Cyberjar was relevant?
That would be crazy.
So cool.
Like if would be really funny if Flip Effect monsters in general were relevant. Like I keep telling people, one of the funniest things about Yu-Gi-Oh is that after Shaddolls in 2014, Flip Effects have just never really been a part of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like they're just not. You kind of forget that it's like that's a big part of the game. Like from the
mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh that just get left behind unless they get unless they get changed in a way where they're no longer even like, for example, fusions. Fusions as a mechanic is so terrible unless they print cards that just fundamentally change what fusions are.
Yeah.
Like fusions used to require polymerization. They used to cost way too many resources to be real, no matter what the effect was, and no one would ever play them. And then they said, okay, well, fuck that. Why don't we just make fusions where the fusion spell sends the materials from deck? Then those materials have effects that when they are sent to the graveyard, they activate and they do things, and not like bullshit things, not like changing monsters to defense mode. They do like pop a back row, draw a card. Like, let's do that. And then years later, let's print Fusion Destiny and the fucking branded fusion, which are also just insane cards, and that makes them relevant. So if they make flip effects relevant by power creeping the fuck out of flip effects, where it's like when you set this monster, you can flip it up by paying 1,000 life points. That's not really a flip effect monster at that point. Like you just made a normal summon monster with extra steps. Like the whole fact that it's a flip effect is just like nonsense.
Or if like, you know, you can set this monster and then like you can flip it as like a trap card, like in response to another card's effect or some crazy.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Like,
well, so the issue with stuff like that has always been that when they do that, things start to appear that you forget existed. Because as soon as you put the word flip on something, you get a new card pool that's never been touched before. For example, there's a card called Guard Dog that as soon as we're allowed to play flip effect monsters effectively, we're going to start playing Guard Dog. And like those cards will just get banned in that time, I guess, whenever that happens.
Just real quick.
It is a beast, level 3 Earth, flip effect monster, and its flip effect is your opponent cannot special summon for the rest of the turn.
Oh my god.
You just never know. You never know what's gonna happen.
Oh my god, why? Like why did
you never know. These cards all exist.
Why
existed
did you just
the whole time.
A card that puts an effect on a game. So again, your D-Bears, your Maxis,
lingering.
Yeah, your lingering bullshit, your scythes. Like, why is there a flip effect monster that's just like out to ruin the game if flip effects ever became relevant? Like
only for the opponent, too. It's so funny.
Oh, cool.
It's awesome.
All right, so Spellbook of Judgment came back, and this has been a long time discussion amongst people about, Spellbook of Judgment can never come back. It's like one of those powerful cards on the ban list. And I've just always been like, that is the furthest thing from the truth. Spellbook of Judgment is very powerful when it was 2013. And honestly, not even that long after 2013 would Spellbook of Judgment have been...
Yeah. I can't believe how long it's been banned. Like, it just didn't need to be banned
years.
until 2022. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been 9 years. And honestly, the card is not going to break the game because you have to play Spellbook cards. And unfortunately, as powerful as Spellbook of Judgment is, because the card itself, like when you read it in a vacuum, it is a powerful effect. The problem is you are putting Spellbook cards in your deck. And like those cards are not that good. And so that's the real issue with Spellbook of Judgment. And it's also like, okay, are you really going to play Jogging the Spiritualist in your deck? Are you really going to play like Kaiko the Ghost Destroyer or whatever? And people who like to play their fun decks or like their weird strategies, sure, like you can play your Spellbook Runic deck and meme on people. But at the end of the day, it's not 2013. It's not going to be what it was, where literally this would have been tier 0 if Dragon Lords didn't exist.
I kind of think outside of like Pot of Greed, cards probably shouldn't be banned for more than 5 years. Like, they should just let them come back and be like, all right, let's see what happens. You know what I mean? Like,
they kind of were doing that for a while. Like,
cards should just come back. Let's see what happens. If nothing happens, cool.
I think what I'll say about that is when cards do come back, I hate it because they change the effects often. We've seen it with Crush Card Virus. We've seen it with Chaos Emperor Dragon. Those are probably the two biggest travesties to getting their effects changed and errated. I hate it so much. I wish they would just completely make new cards like Neo Chaos Emperor Dragon, and he just has the effect that the one has. I hate it so much that I'm scared of them bringing back a card like Painful Choice and just completely.
Yeah, I hate.
They would butcher it. Like they would ruin like every card of balance. But I agree with you. Like cards being banned forever it's kind of iconic in a way because it gives the Yu-Gi-Oh that lore. It's like the power 9 in Magic. Like they will never be a part of Standard again, I think, because they've always been banned. So there's this lore in Magic the Gathering. When you play that game, you hear about the Power 9, like Black Lotus, right? But like Black Lotus has not been legal in Standard for literally probably longer than Joe Dietrich has been alive. So like that, like seriously, I think it's been banned in Standard longer than you have existed on this earth, which is
that's the thing. Like Pot of Greed probably can never come back, right? It's fucking, that card's stupid.
It's so
they make cards that are
Pot of Greed over and over. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Spellbook of Judgment didn't need to be banned for 9 years. So like after 5 years, they could have just like brought it back, and then if it was like still broken somehow, they could have banned it again.
Although I will say that was one of the first decks I tested with Spellbook Runic, and I was looking for some stuff. You were right; the deck composition hurt me too much. There were just too many bad Spellbooks you had to run.
Like you have to play a lot of.
I did find some interesting stuff. Because I don't think it's good, I have a combo that I think is pretty cool. That I'm just gonna say. If you have a blue boy and any other monster, after searching Judgment and activating Judgment, you can make Elf with the blue boy, and the Elf will bring back the blue boy, and then you can make Selene. And since you just will have 3 spells in spellbooks, you can bring back the blue boy again. And then once you have the Selene, the blue boy, you can make there's a Link 1 Artemis that you can make with the blue boy. From there, you can make like almost any Link 4 in the game. You can get to Avramax just with the Link 3 and the Link 1. The Avramax says it's the only monster that can be attacked. It's like 3,000. It has like it is its own honest and it can't be targeted.
Oh my
so
God,
like
yeah,
so you the blue boy alone plus any other monster is the judgment resolving for Jowgen, and you can't attack the Jowgen.
Can't you not use the Alpha's Link material turn it summons?
Oh my God, is that true?
Yeah,
you're right.
Thank you, Joe.
Man, you're right. Okay, good. This one didn't get out of the solo room, so I'm glad this one's
you
did
then. You did preface it by saying like this combo isn't really anything that
it was like a day 0.
Yeah, like even if it was legal, you didn't think it was that good anyway.
Dang it,
you're willing to say it out
right.
loud. But thank God Joe just completely shat on it and told you to go fuck yourself.
Yep, not true.
I really appreciate that. So thank you, Joe. Shout out to Joe. Thank you for being here. A point of the Red Lotus is at 1. That's probably really annoying because I remember that card was cited a lot at 3. It's a very unfair card. It basically just thought seizes your opponent. For people who play Magic the Gathering, thought seize looks at your opponent's hand and just gets rid of a card. This, because of Yu-Gi-Oh being so fast, where you just die in 1 turn, you just take your opponent's best card out their hand and you kill them.
Yep, it's another card that I would, like, if I'm playing against a deck that I know sides a pointer, it's like I would put in Reboot for this.
Yes. So
like
now
this card is fucking Dust Shoot.
It's better in a lot of ways because they don't need to have a certain number of cards in hand.
That's crazy.
It's weird that it was around for so long. It's weird that it didn't affect the game for so long.
Yeah.
And when it affected the game, it affected it too much.
Oh, I remember this card. I just looked it up. I remember this card.
Yeah,
well, it's goofy because you have to reveal your own hand too. So it actually removes almost all public information from the game. There's theoretically, as soon as someone activates a pointer, you both can just say, "All right, well, we can declare a winner." Like
I would.
Sometimes you activate it and you know you lost.
Yeah, especially when you look at your hand, you're like, "Well, I only have 1 play," and then your opponent's like, "Draw phase a pointer." Is this a draw phase card? Is that what people did with it?
Yeah, to play around Dark Ruler.
Yeah, because you don't even want to deal with like Kaiju's, Lava Golem, none of that shit. You're just like, I'm just gonna see it in me. Okay, I don't think there's much else to be said about it. It's at 1. That's annoying. I don't even know if people are going to side it, and if they do, again, just annoying. When the one time they have the appointer, like, oh, he had the 1 appointer. Like, I don't want to hear that too. I'm already hearing the 1 call by the 1 instant fusion. Okay, Dynamite is at 3. Probably not relevant at all.
Nah, you need Diagram for the deck to be playable again.
Is that
only have 1? It's at 1.
It's at 1.
Yeah. And Terraforming is also at 1, right? So it's not.
Yep.
Yeah, you could ban Dynamite Knight and put Diagram at 3, and I think the deck would become a deck immediately.
So Diagram is
not this way.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like, I know Diagram is ridiculous as a card. It's still ridiculous as a card. I remember last podcast we did this Banlist shit, and I tried to ask you if Masterpiece could come back, and you were like, "No, we still play with cards." And like it was a whole thing because he's unaffected by cards.
Still play with cards.
He was like, "We still play with cards." Like Masterpiece still is a problem. So. So Diagram obviously is ridiculous, and Masterpiece and Diagram together, even in 2022, I guess would actually be able to do something, which is like so funny to think about because that shit's old as hell. But I guess we still play with cards, so that's that.
It's those decks that just like don't interact with the game. They're just like, yeah, here we are.
I'm unaffected by cards. Like,
do some other nonsense that's not Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like, well, can't do that.
Yeah, and then he has a built-in like, I'll pop anything, quick effect. Okay, Cyber Angel Ben 10. Now this one, I actually don't know how to feel about this personally because when I first started coming back to Yu-Gi-Oh! In any kind of way, because there was a 5-year period where I just didn't even go to locals or anything. And then I started in 2021 coming back to just going to locals and hanging out, not playing Edison because it wasn't really a thing at my local at the time, but I was just watching and I saw that Drytron was one of the best decks last year. And they only had 1 Ben 10, and the shit that they did with that 1 Ben 10, I was like, this card seems like a problem, right? Like, it was just like, because it's also super searchable, and then it just does so many things that are kind of just broken in Yu-Gi-Oh! For example, it's not once per turn, and almost every card has been printed in the last like 7 years has some kind of once per turn on it. Ben 10 just has no such restriction. So he's just like an anomaly. And at 1, he enabled some of the most crazy end boards that I've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like honestly, me coming back to Yu-Gi-Oh! And seeing Drytron is like one of my first experiences. That was when I said this game has gotten so far from what I used to play. And now he's at 3, and I don't even know if it matters because again, it's so highly searchable.
Yeah.
So is that the truth? Like, am I right on that?
I think so. We already had like 3 prep, so like we could get it pretty easy. And like right now, like with the tier deck doing the Eradicator thing and Appaloosa and Dweller, like all those cards are really good against Drytron. So
yeah.
I think the deck will still be good, but
yes.
I don't think it'll be crazy.
But it kind of got power crept, right? Like Drytron is just naturally it's 2021's. It's one of 2021's decks. Is now 2022. Konami needs to sell new cards, not old ones. So they just.
Well, I think Drytron was always kind of like a product of its time too, because it like is so much of a glass cannon, and it kind of like required its format to be that format for it to be as good as it was.
Perfect storm type of thing.
Yeah. Also, Ben 10, it was at 2 before this.
Yep.
I think 2 and 3 are kind of the same, I guess.
Yeah.
One thing that probably didn't come up before that you didn't see when they had 1 is that Ben 10 actually can search itself, which is its own thing. It's its own whole thing, but it's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is at 1, when it was at 1, pretty much all of 2021, the combos that you did with just a 1, I was like, that card seems like it's. I would joke to my friend Drew, who was the main person playing it at my local, and he would just destroy everybody. And I'll be like, it almost seems like it's worth running a DD Crow or something to banish that fucking thing because of how many times you used it in that 1 turn. Like he would start off with like Zeta or Alpha, whatever that combo is. You guys know the combo. The modern Magician Shark. And he would start doing a combo. And I'm like, the amount of times that you used Ben 10 in that turn just seems so problematic that if it was at 3, it's like, sure, technically your deck would be more consistent, but I also think that you don't ever want to see more than one of it in your hand.
Yeah.
Like your hands probably would be more bricky if you drew multiple Ben 10s because you only needed 1 to do everything. Like whenever he would complain about losing, it would often be because I didn't draw enough Drytron cards. Like I needed to draw more names. I needed to draw Drytron monsters and not draw Ben 10 and Isha 10 and like all the other bullshit that you play to enable that engine. You don't really necessarily want to see a bunch of that. Like I don't want to see 2 Isha 10s in my deck or my hand or Ida 10 or whatever his name is.
I do think Ben 10's also another symptom getting unbanned because Ava was more of a problem. Ava was the actual problem, I think, in the long run. Yeah,
that card
was
crazy. Is unreal. That card would make Drytron like pretty much irrelevant again if it was. It's just such a broken ass card. Yeah. That card is gone. Shooting Riser Dragon being unlimited. This has no effect, right? Like this is.
Why was it at 1? I didn't know it was at 1.
It did nothing at 1, and it did nothing. It will do nothing at. It's the same exact.
Well, it's never been played at more than 1 in the first place.
It's very confusing.
Also, it used to send snow, so freaking.
This is a rant. It should have never been on the ban list unless it was going to be actually banned from the game. So being at 3 or being at 1 is all the same. Fusion Destiny though. So Anaconda is this is a Joe card. So shout out to Joe. Anaconda is banned still. Fusion Destiny is now at 3. I hated it being at 2. I don't really like cards being at 2. I think I just don't like cards being at anything that's not like basically triplicate or banned. Yeah, I'm that kind of guy. But yeah, it was at 2. It's now at 3. I don't know what this means, but Joe, can you give your expertise on this?
Oh boy. So they put Fusion Destiny and Nadir, which is the next card, to 2, the list after I won. And
that's what I was going to ask. I was going to wait till we got to Nadir, but you just brought it up. Nadir got hit this year, right? It was right after you won. Yeah, I mean, you just said that. So I just think it's interesting that it got hit this year and it's so soon getting unhit.
I mean, the Invoked deck like now is terrible. Like it's unfortunate, but it's just like really outclassed by like tier and a whole bunch of other things.
Power creep.
Yeah.
Because why do I need fusion spells? My monsters can just fuse now on their own without anything.
Exactly.
Got to keep power creeping the mechanics.
I think Nadir will probably get some play. I think Fusion Destiny will definitely get some play. That's another card that interacts. DP interacts really interestingly with Mystic Mine. Since you're able to like get your own DP off the board every single turn and keep like going +1 under mine is really gross.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot this year, and that shit is always heartbreaking to watch somebody's cards get grinded away like that.
Yep.
It is disgusting. So yeah, so Fusion Destiny you think will be actually relevant because of DPE still being illegal, despite Anaconda being banned. Like Fusion Destiny at 3 is a real thing, and I mean, nothing happened to Celestial and Dasher, right? Like they're still legal. Like obviously they're still legal, but like yes, they're still legal. It's still a draw too. And now it's just more consistent. Like now you have a more consistent way to see that DPE setup. So I am low key kind of happy that DPE may be returning to the format in like a relevant way because I actually like that card. Like I just
me too. It was one of my I loved playing DPE so much.
That card is very cool. You can really tell like who's really good at like fundamentals based on how well they use that card.
Yep. And I think that's why I like this so much because I feel like it's something that the good players use better than the regular players. Like there's just is blatantly a skill gap with that card. And Nadir Servant is a card with a lot of text. It does a lot of things. It's very powerful. I totally get why they didn't want it to be a part of the game, and now they changed their mind. This will have an effect on the game, though. You think?
It gets better now that like the new set came out with like Garura. Essentially, it makes Nadir like
a draw card.
A draw one.
Creed again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally engage.
Yeah. What? So many literally engages. There's so many literally engages.
It draws, right?
Yeah, it draws a card.
When they announced Garura as a TCG, when they announced that card as a TCG exclusive, I remember I immediately lost my mind. I popped into my Facebook Messenger chat with Steve Gleason and started just typing in all capital letters. Why would they do this to me? How could you make a card like Garura?
So real quick, Nadir Servant was at what before this?
2. Yeah.
Okay, so they just made it more consistent, and it's not searchable really, like realistically.
No.
But it being at 3 is a big deal because just percentages. So that's cool. I like the fact that it is a engage. I think engage is a great card. They've printed a lot of engages, like you said, Chris. A lot of pot of greeds, basically. Moye is fucking engaged. I joked about it a lot when Sorcerer first came out, and I said when they make Chichao, I think is that his name? When they make him and they go like search then draw. Like or draw then search, whatever one. But like they're literally doing the effective engage essentially, and then now you have Nadir Servant with the Garura thing, and you can do the same thing, like search and draw. Very very broken mechanic, or not even mechanic, very broken interaction in the game, and it is just an interactive card. Like it doesn't floodgate anybody. It doesn't flat out like end the game on its own. It's just like this is a means to an end to get like my combo pieces or like whatever I'm trying to do, and I like cards like that.
Well, it has a very like. It's the better kind of pot of greed in that it's really a pick 2 more than it is a draw 2. And the things you can pick from are so varied and like they're so far out there. Some people like you'll see people like send Shurag with it. I've seen people like it gets so wacky what you're allowed to just do with part 1 and then even what you're allowed to do with part 2. Because now there's a freaking there's a Libromancer, there are ritual decks, there's like the other half with the Dogmatica stuff. You can get to ritual monsters and then that supports other weird archetypes. And so like none of it's broken. It's all just like it's nice to be able to do it, I guess. So, I like it.
Could become broken eventually.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good for the game. Anything else to say about Nadir Servant, or should we move on to Trickstar Light Stage?
Yeah,
Light Stage.
Okay, so Light Stage used to be fucking crack.
I love Light Stage. It is still.
I was spectating Yu-Gi-Oh a lot. I remember Light Stage being like honestly. The card just reads broken. It's one of those blatantly broken cards. You play it and it immediately replaces itself, right? So it searches on activation, and then it like freezes a back row for the whole turn, and then on the end phase it like destroys that back row.
Yep.
And then it does. Cool. Does it do one more thing? I feel like it does one more thing.
It increases burn damage. Yeah.
So for Trickstar decks, it actually is pretty relevant. But like, this card's. It used to be really crazy, and I remember there was a point where I think like Jeff Jones and a couple other people were playing Sky Striker, Trickstar, some shit like that, and that deck was actually pretty nice. I don't really know how relevant it's going to be in 2022.
I think it's auto relevant. It summons a level 2. The free card that you get can be a level 2.
Yeah. So Lilybell, and when Lilybell's added, it just special summons itself. So.
Oh, well, that's super relevant actually.
Yeah, and then you can run Cantina too. It's interesting because this card like it is almost instant fusion. The number of different versions of instant fusion we've gotten in a small amount of time is very weird. Because this is a 2 or a 5 or a 4 or a 3, I think. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5 you can access. And then like my camera died. I think my phone ran out.
We're approaching it. We're literally at the end of this anyway.
But then like Runic also is 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't have the 5 yet. I think we get the 5 next set, but like 2 different engines we got right at the same time that are both 2, 3, 4, 5 with utility attached. So it's very weird. And then Instant Fusion still a 1. I mean, it deserves it because of Kikalos, but like, yeah, it's cool.
Okay, so Light Stage is actually playable. Is not a meme. It's the real deal. And then that second effect where you just like freeze a back row and then pop it on your face is pretty nice too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So basically, it sounds like the Trickstar package is like a little engine, right? Like you can just play that as an engine. And that's kind of what's been happening to Trickstar at the end of Trickstar's life as a real deck by itself. Like that was what was happening. It was being basically used as an engine for other decks that were better. And then they were like, we don't like you splashing this, because that's what they tend to do after a while anyway, right? Like when Shaddolls got splashed too much, they just were like, well, okay, we'll just destroy Shaddolls, right? Like we'll just ban fusions. We will literally ban Construct because
that was so weird.
But that's what they do though. After people splash an engine too much, or like even like Danger. Remember what happened to Danger? Like Danger was being splashed too much, and they were like, okay, we're getting rid of it. Like you will not be playing this anymore. Now look at where we are again.
I wish those had stayed banned. Danger, I don't like.
Danger
I've always hated.
Is overpowered. I think. I don't think Danger can ever not be OP too. Like I think that it's always going to be good as long as you could play 3 of all of them. Basically, like you read the cards, and in any card game, right? Like in any card game, the Danger cards will be good. You can translate to any card game that has ever been played. The Danger cards will be not only just like relevant, they will just be good cards. They're just good cards.
They're unfixable. They're an unfixable problem.
Yeah,
it's the way I reacted to like reading the Sky Striker cards for the first time. It's just like these are unfixable.
Yeah,
you can't
Sky
fix this.
Striker has been around for 5 years, right? So like you are correct. It is actually, I can't even deny it. Like Sky Striker is just a deck of like these cards will just be good always. Like if engaged with the 3 right now, like if Sky Striker had 3 of all of its cards right now, it would be annoying. Like it would be a real deck. You'd have to deal with it. Like it would not be like some bullshit like, oh, I'm playing a Sky Striker, I got the buy. Like you did not get the buy. Like at best, like you know, you go first, you get to Eradicator them. But like if you do not get to do that, you are in fucking trouble if that deck is at full power. And that's like the Danger just shows me. Danger reminds me of Malicious. You know how Malicious, like at 2, it's pretty terrible, but then at 3, it's too much. Like every time Malicious has ever gone to 3, it has been entirely. The last time was Goki, I think, and it was entirely too much. Like it was so much for the game, and it's just funny seeing a lot more cards be created like that, where they're just going to be good forever, and eventually you're going to have to do something about them because they're just like blatantly good.
Sky Strikers were the first one I ever said that, where like as soon as I was reading them, I said like there's no amount of banning that will solve the problem. They're gonna ban Engage, and then we're gonna keep playing Widow Anchor. They're gonna like ban Widow Anchor. We're gonna keep playing Eagle Booster. People still play Eagle Booster in just some nonsense. You'll just see it sometimes. They'll be like, "Why'd he summon that Xyz monster in the extra monster dome? There's no reason for that." And they're like, "Eagle Booster." It's like, what is wrong with you? He's Eagle Boostered like an Exorcist or Michaelis. Leave me alone.
So I have a question.
There's no better version of it either. There's no other generic option. Eagle Booster is the generic option.
Yeah, I kind of feel like other examples of this are obviously like Fairy Tale Snow, right? Like it's just a generic good. Like it will always be too much when it's relevant, right? Like when it is it will just be too much when it's playable. It will either be like unplayable because decks aren't getting 7 cards in the grave, or it would just be decks are getting 20 cards in the grave and you can use it up to 3 times in one turn. And that's like way too much happening with one card. And you know, the same as can be said about those. Wall Reeling Light, I'm not even going to say anything about it. It's irrelevant. What I will ask,
I was going to ask is there an FTK that we don't know about? I feel like that card is always used in an FTK.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, Wall Reeling Light is just they just got it off the ban list because I know that the rumor was that Konami wants to get every card off the ban list, or like pretty much they want to slim down the ban list. And I could see it because a lot of cards just don't need to be banned still. Like there's so many cards still on it right now that will have no effect. But
well, it feels like I think last time you had me and Steve on here, and Steve said something about like it feels like someone got a hold of the ban list that really like cares about Yu-Gi-Oh at all.
Yeah.
It feels like something changed over there because these like last 2 ban lists both in a row.
All right, you feel like this is a good one too, then?
Like good. Whether or not the game will become better is questionable, but in terms of like doing things that we all, I think, feel like they should have been doing for a while, it's been like, oh yeah, there it is, like the symptoms thing. Just like both
like
ban lists have done a little.
Gone, Chaos Ruler gone.
Yeah,
Ronin, Totem, and Snow obviously are just not once per turn, very broken enabler cards.
Yeah.
So like they make sense. Rev Reboot to me is just like I'd rather be banned than to be at 1.
Yeah.
So I totally get like that type of thing.
If they ban Called By, I'll be like freaking dance in the streets.
Yeah. So overall, do you guys hate this list or do you like this list? Joe, you first.
I don't hate it. I don't think it's like awful.
Right.
I think they hit some like important cards, but I think missing mine was just it's depressing for me. Like
We didn't
playing
talk about
events
this.
every weekend, and I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, that's not fun. I know you go to a lot of regionals and stuff too, which is
Yeah.
so you play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh at that point. What about Scythe? We didn't really talk about Scythe at all, but Scythe is still legal.
Yeah, so like with Hulk being banned, it makes the Scythe Dagda combo like impossible, obviously. But there's like still ways you can access it, and like obviously Sanctum is still a card too.
Yeah. But like for good measure, Scythe should just probably be banned, just for good measure, right? Because like,
yeah, I agree.
It is just a lingering effect on the game. That's not like, even if it's the combo is like harder to do and it's not really reliable to like Scythe somebody now, it's still like that is a non-interactive thing when it happens. Like that is just not like no one is interacting with you. You just played Scythe on me. I couldn't play the game and you killed me next turn. And I think like in general, those cards should probably be like Dimensional Barrier is still a pretty ignorant card. I'm surprised because that card came out like 2016, 2017. And it was obviously in the Zoom mirror, it was crazy. And I didn't know if it would become relevant again because Yu-Gi-Oh! Had just gotten to a point where you were doing so many different things in one turn. But then they made the best decks do like one thing. And like, you know, you debarrier the Despia deck, right? Like that was just like GG, like you can't play. Like, congrats, your deck is a fusion deck, and I call fusion. Haha, I got you. Like those cards are just so toxic.
Yo, I love saying haha, got you.
Yeah, I hope you don't actually ever, but like those cards are just really not fun to get called by. And that was like at the end of me playing, I got debarried out of a tournament and just like this is not it. But yeah, that's Chris, how do you feel about this list? Because you seem to like it overall, I would say.
Yeah, so I mean, like kind of based on what we've been talking about, and like, yeah, I do like it. I think it's more housekeeping than a ban list, which might be why some people don't like it. But it's a lot of housekeeping that I think if it didn't get done, I would have been way more sad. It's nice to see the game move in a direction I like. Yeah. As like I don't know, it's just a personal liking of it. Besides that, as for why I also don't think cards like Scythe need to be banned, I say this, I feel like I might have even said this on the podcast already in just like the 3 times I've been on, but like one of the first games in the anime that's like one of the most memorable games is like the Yugi versus Kaiba one, where like all those episodes, like all that time of dueling and all that plot development was completely invalidated because Yugi just happened to draw Exodia. I think like the branding of Yu-Gi-Oh has always been very clear about what makes the game different than other games, and it's the thing that we're complaining about. It's always been that. I think that's always been Yu-Gi-Oh, and I've never expected anything else.
Well, I'm sorry, that's Yu-Gi-Oh.
I love it for that.
I'm sorry, yeah, like, I just fucking won.
That's what I like. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you remember all those expensive cards you played, Kaiba? Because that's literally the plot of that episode.
Yeah,
Kaiba plays all these expensive cards and does these like extremely skillful decisions. He's like, I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh my whole life. This is all I know. Look at me go. And Yugi's like, my grandpa gave me Exodia. Look what I drew for turn. It's like, yeah, there it is. That's the game you signed up for. So I've always been like,
that's what it's always been. And
it's been like that the whole time.
They kind of kept true to that. That's interesting when you think about it. Like I never really. That's a full circle moment. Episode 1 of the anime is Yugi beating Kaiba with some bullshit. Like it is straight. Like Kaiba doesn't he have 3 blue eyes on the field? And like,
he makes a blue eyes ultimate.
He's like attacking 4 game episode 1 with 3 blue eyes, which is basically
I don't think so.
Which is basically like you guys making your crazy boards turn 1, doing all this nonsense, and then your opponent is just like, mine? Like I win. Like it's just really stupid. And everyone just like rages, like Kaiba just raged and he hated it and he became obsessed. He became obsessed with Yugi after that. It was like, I'm going to kill this kid. I'm going to create a tournament that's $1 billion. And I'm even going to make sure that his best friend gets involved. And like,
At the end, they just summon God cards on each other. Like it's just some BS. It's always some BS every time. It's always
been BS. Yeah, that's true. So
it's funny. I love it.
I'm really glad that you guys came on for this episode. This was really fun. I think that this was a really healthy discussion, and I think that this ban list, while it did do a lot of things that like needed to be done, there's always more that they should be and could be doing to make the game more healthy. And I wish that, you know, that it would get to that point. I always try to tell myself, well, it's a business, they got to sell cards, but like, you don't need to sell. You're not selling D-Bearers and Scythes and Mystic Mines. You're just like, you're not. So no matter how much of a business it is, like people, you can't use that excuse for everything. Like some of this shit is just bad. And I think that they like people complaining because people are talking at the very least. Like it's like the all press is all, even bad press is good press because it's just like you're talking about the game still.
I do always wonder, like, and this isn't just for Yu-Gi-Oh, it's for like every game that makes these kind of decisions and patches and updates. I always wonder, like, what are the discussions at the round table? Like, I would love to know, like, what are they saying? Like, why do they think Mystic Mine should be legal or should be, you know what I mean? Like, I would love to know what, like, their internal discussion is as to what the state of the game is and where they think it's going and why they think a card should stay legal or be banned.
Yeah, if your entire community is complaining about something, and it is like 90% of the community complaining about it, you only got the 10% of people slobbering and saying like it's fine. But like it is just not good. And it's not to say that like, okay, so mine being a problem or whatever, that's one thing. It's not to say that there aren't other problems outside of mine, right? Like we all agree that the game switching to set up 6 negates turn 1 is still, that's not good either. Like that's also not fucking fun, at least to me. Like that is part of the reason why I do not play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is because last year when I was attempting to learn the game again and I saw Drytron do its turn 1, I was like, that's not what? Like you summoned Beatrice and just like also summoned all these other things and you have a full hand because of Eva. Then you did Eva again on his draw phase and you have all these cards. You have a Herald, so you can't play any card. He can't play cards. And you want me to come back to this because as you sat there and did that turn 1 and you're like, oh, I do this 80% of the games. Like my deck is consistent. You want me to sit there and be like, okay, that's perfectly fine. Like let me play my Tri Brigade deck and like try to cheese you back. That's not healthy either. And there needs to be some kind of medium where like there's interaction happening and like skill, and it will always be skill in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like people, you know, the good players are still topping, the good players are still winning, they're still doing well. But like it still doesn't make it okay when the games are so non-interactive, right? Like that's just always going to be a thing. I think before we get out of here, because I know Joe, you have to go to something. One of the things I'll say as we leave this episode about this ban list and stuff is like, I don't like how when this ban list came out, I'm pretty sure at the top of the page, it says the next ban list will come out no later than a couple months from now. Like they're not.
Yeah, no communication with the player base. Love that.
I think that is just like, and this has been something I see a lot of people complaining about as well recently. And I think that is not like the posts are like copy pasted from Twitter. There's like a lot of copy pasta stuff on Zodiac Duelist and like people just saying like, oh, these are a list of things that Konami needs to do that the player base deserves. But I don't think that shit is being, I don't think it's funny. I don't think that it's a joke. I think that it's serious. Like there's no reason why you guys are in the dark about when the game is going to drastically change. Like now that they don't even include a date. So before it would say no sooner than, and it would say like December 21st. Right. And so everybody will be like, okay, well, at least we know that from October 3rd to December 21st, there will be no ban list. Like at the very least, like, you know, the game is going to stay the same. Now they're just like no sooner than who cares? Like that shit is so like, I just do not understand why they're going in the opposite direction of just being more open and communicating with the player base. It's just, I don't know. It just seems really frustrating. If I was a current Yu-Gi-Oh player, I'd just be very frustrated with that type of thing, like not knowing when my cards are going to get possibly banned or hurt. It's just not.
I agree. I don't know. Konami's always had like issues as a company with doing stuff like that. That it's just like obviously wrong. It's like, what? Why'd you what? The Kojima thing.
I don't know how it can help them. Like I don't know how. Yeah. I don't know how some of the decisions that they make could be a good thing. Like I'm just trying to understand, if I was running a business, how could this benefit me that my player base is actively hating me because of these decisions that I'm making that don't even benefit me. Like they're not even going to my bottom line in a positive way. Like that, you being ambiguous about when the next ban list is coming out does not help you financially at all. It just doesn't. So I don't know. That type of stuff is really frustrating, but I just wanted to vent that out as like a representative of the people who have been talking about it a lot lately, because I see a lot of people saying like this is bullshit. The fact that I have no idea when the next list is coming, and I agree with them, so I just wanted to voice that. All right, before we get out of here, I got to do one last thing, and as you guys know, I always give a shout out to the people at our Patreon. There are 40 of you right now. Thank you guys so much for supporting the IMNerd podcast. I really appreciate it. So I'll start with, we got Connie, Austin, Leon, Quest, Garen, Xavier, Hylian, TCG Automotive, Dimitri Barnes, Alexander Brissett, Vinny Casella, Alex Flamer, Henri Reynolds, CJ, WK Dad 1, Dan Variable, Dennis Milburn, Joseph Marcello, First to Home, Dalis Fernares, S. Akuma, Mitchell, Nals, Midwest Gaming, William Shapiro, Dimitri Safirides, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey, Biz, Roz Weiss, Nick Stango, Scott Polera, Hanso, our two-time national champion, Vincent Zen, Sarah Maria, Sonny at the Top Cut Podcast, Alex Ahern, Philip Campa, Jalen Haskins, Arale, Melfi, Slump. I always have to slow down on that one. And last but not least, Dominic Couch. Don't sleep on the fucking couch. So thank you so much, Joe, for coming on. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. I actually really enjoyed this, and I am looking forward to doing more of these in the future as ban lists come out, because despite the fact that I am not a current Yu-Gi-Oh player, as you guys can clearly tell, I do keep up with the game enough to know like what is going on to a degree. And I just think it's interesting to just have these discussions anyway. You know, it's fun. It's fun. And I think that these things need to be talked about, which is why this podcast was created, to do stuff like this. So you guys have a good night. And as I always say, do the things that make you happy. Yeah, that's all I got.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Thank you.